It's not the science. It's not the scandals. It's not even the doubt you feel late at night when the house goes quiet. The real reason millions of Americans are losing their faith is so simple, so close to home, that almost nobody talks about it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Stay with me, because this isn't what you think. Look around you. Empty pews on a Sunday morning. Churches that used to be packed, now echoing. Buildings that took whole communities to build, sitting silent. Some sold off, some turned into coffee shops, some bulldozed for parking lots. This is happening in towns all across America, small towns, big cities. North, south, east, west, the numbers are staggering. For the first time in our history, fewer than half of Americans belong to a church, a synagogue, or a mosque. Less than half. Think about that. For generation after generation, faith was the center of American life. It was the thing you could count on, the constant. And now, in just a couple of decades, it's slipping through our fingers. People want to blame the obvious things. They say it's the internet. They say it's smartphones. They say young people are too distracted, too busy, too plugged in to care about anything bigger than themselves. They say it's the scientists, the atheists writing books, the professors filling kids' heads with doubt. They say it's the scandals, the hypocrites, the leaders who said one thing and did another. And sure, all of that plays a part. But here's what almost nobody is willing to admit. Those things aren't the real reason. Because here's the thing. People have always had doubts. People have always faced hard questions. People have always seen leaders fall short. That's nothing new. That's as old as time itself. So why now? Why is faith collapsing right now in our lifetime faster than ever before? The answer is going to surprise you. Let me paint you a picture first. Picture a family, a mom, a dad, 2 kids. It's Sunday morning. Years ago, this family would already be in the car, dressed up, headed to a place where they knew everyone, and everyone knew them. They'd sing the same songs their grandparents sang. They'd shake hands with the same faces every single week. After the service, they'd stand around for an hour just talking about the harvest, about the new baby, about who was sick and needed a meal brought over. That family had a net, a safety net made of people who showed up. Now picture that same family today. It's Sunday morning, the kids are on their tablets, mom's scrolling on her phone, dad's catching up on work emails because Monday's already breathing down his neck, nobody's getting in the car, nobody's going anywhere, and it's not because they decided faith was fake. It's not because some scientist convinced them God doesn't exist. It's because somewhere along the way, they got cut off. They got isolated. They lost the people. And here's the brutal truth. We didn't lose our faith because we stopped believing. We lost our faith because we stopped belonging. That's the real reason. That's the thing nobody wants to say out loud. Let me say it again because it matters. Faith was never just about what happens in your head. It was never just a private idea you carry around alone. Faith was always about people, community, showing up, being known, being missed when you're gone, and that is exactly what we've lost. Think about how lonely life has become. 100 years ago, you lived in the same town as your parents, your grandparents, your cousins. Your whole life was woven together with other people. You couldn't disappear if you tried. Somebody would notice. Somebody would come knocking. Now, people move across the country for a job. They live in apartments where they've never once met their neighbor. They text more than they talk. They've got hundreds of friends online and not one person they could call at 2 a.m. We are the loneliest generation in human history. And loneliness, it turns out, is faith's quiet killer. Because when you're surrounded by people who believe, belief is easy, it's natural, it's just the air you breathe. But when you're alone, when nobody's checking on you, when nobody notices whether you showed up or not, faith starts to feel like a chore. Then it feels optional. Then, slowly, it just fades away. Not with a bang, with a whimper. You don't decide to stop believing, you just stop showing up. And then one day you realize you can't even remember the last time you did. Let me give you some numbers that'll stop you cold. Researchers who study this stuff have found something incredible. The single biggest predictor of whether someone keeps their faith isn't how smart they are. It isn't how much they've read. It isn't even how they were raised. It's whether they have close friends who share that faith. Let me repeat that. The number one factor isn't doctrine. It isn't argument. It's relationship. People who have just a handful of close friends in their faith community stay year after year, decade after decade. People who don't, they drift. They leave. They're gone within a few years. It's not even close. And here's where it gets really interesting. We've been fighting the wrong war this whole time. For decades now, the response to people losing their faith has been to argue harder, to build better arguments, to win the debate, to prove the doubters wrong. We thought if we just had the right answers, people would come back. So we made the videos, we wrote the books, we had the debates, we poured millions of dollars into convincing people that the facts were on our side. And you know what happened? People kept leaving because we were answering a question nobody was asking. The person sitting alone in their apartment on a Sunday morning isn't lying awake at night thinking about the finer points of theology. They're lonely, they're tired, they feel like nobody would notice if they vanished. You can't argue someone out of loneliness. You can't debate someone into belonging. What they're missing isn't information, it's connection. And that changes everything. Now, here's where I want to turn a corner. Because I didn't make this video to depress you. I didn't make it to leave you staring at empty pews feeling hopeless. I made it because there's an answer. And it's so much simpler than anyone expects. If the problem is that we lost our people, then the solution is to find our people again. That's it. That's the whole thing. Not a giant program, not a massive budget, not some clever new strategy cooked up in a boardroom, just people showing up for each other. Let me tell you about something I came across recently. A small group of people in an ordinary town, nothing fancy. They didn't have a big building. They didn't have a famous leader. They just decided to do one simple thing. Every week they'd gather in someone's living room, they'd share a meal, they'd talk about their lives, the real stuff, the hard stuff, the stuff you don't post online. And when someone was struggling, they didn't send thoughts and prayers from a distance. They showed up with food, with help, with their actual hands and their actual time. When someone lost a job, the group helped them find work. When someone was sick, the group took turns sitting with them. When someone had a new baby, meals showed up on the porch for 2 solid weeks. Nothing dramatic, just presence, just showing up over and over again. And here's what happened. People who hadn't darkened the door of a church in years started coming, not because someone won an argument with them, but because someone finally noticed them. Someone finally said, "We'd love to have you. We saved you a seat." People who were drowning in loneliness suddenly had a net again, a net made of people. And their faith, it came roaring back to life. Not because they got smarter, because they got connected. This is the part that gets me. We made faith so complicated. We turned it into an institution, a building, a performance, a thing you watch from a seat in a dark room. But that was never what it was supposed to be. At its very heart, faith was always meant to be a family. People who eat together. People who weep together. People who carry each other's burdens. People who show up at the hospital and at the funeral and at the wedding and at the kitchen table. That's the thing we lost, and that's the thing we can get back. Let me be really clear about who this is for. Maybe you're someone who used to believe, and somewhere along the way, you drifted. Not because you stopped caring, but because life got busy and lonely and the people just faded away. This is for you. Maybe you've never really had faith at all, but lately you've felt this ache, this sense that something's missing, this quiet hunger for something more than the screen in your hand. This is for you too. Or maybe you still believe, still show up, but you look around and you watch your kids, your friends, your neighbors slipping away, and you don't know how to stop it. This is especially for you, because here's what I want you to understand. You don't fix this from the top down. You don't fix it with a bigger budget or a slicker program. You fix it from the bottom up, one relationship at a time, one meal at a time, one person who decides to stop scrolling and start showing up. Let me tell you why this works when nothing else does. Human beings are wired for connection. We are built for it, down to our very bones. Studies have shown that loneliness is as dangerous to your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. 15 every single day. Loneliness raises your risk of heart disease. It raises your risk of stroke. It shortens your life. It wrecks your mind. We are starving for each other, literally dying for connection. And faith communities, when they actually work, are one of the last places left in our entire society where strangers become family, where the old and the young sit in the same room, where the rich and the poor break the same bread, where you're not a customer, not a follower, not a profile, you're a person known by name. There is almost nothing else like that left in the modern world. Think about it. Where else do people gather like that anymore? Not at work. Work is transactional. They'd replace you tomorrow. Not online. Online is performance. Everybody's showing their highlight reel. Not at the gym, not at the store, not on the street where nobody makes eye contact. A real faith community might be the last true village we have left, and we're letting it disappear. So here's the thing I keep coming back to. The solution isn't to argue louder. The solution is to love better. It's not about being right. It's about being there. And anyone can do that. You don't need a degree. You don't need a title. You don't need permission. You just need to be willing to show up for somebody. Let me give you a picture of what this could look like for you. Imagine inviting 3 or 4 people into your home this week. Not for anything fancy, just dinner, just conversation. Imagine asking them the real questions. How are you actually doing? What are you carrying right now? What's keeping you up at night? Imagine listening, really listening, not waiting to talk, just listening. Imagine that becoming a habit every week. The same people, the same table. Imagine what happens to those people over a year, over 5 years, over a lifetime. Imagine the loneliness lifting, the faith returning, the sense that you're not alone in this world after all. That's not a fantasy. That's how it always worked. For thousands of years, we just forgot. Now let me address the thing you might be thinking right now. You might be thinking, but I tried church and it didn't work for me. The people were cold, the place felt fake, nobody knew my name even after a year. I hear you. And I'm not going to pretend that never happens. It happens all the time because somewhere along the way, a lot of these places forgot their first job. They got obsessed with the building, the budget, the show, and they forgot the people. But here's the thing. That's not a reason to give up on connection. That's a reason to go find it or to build it yourself. You don't have to wait for a perfect community to appear. You can start one right at your own kitchen table. The early movements of faith didn't start in grand cathedrals. They started in homes, around tables, with ordinary people sharing what little they had. That's where it always began. And that's where it can begin again. Let me tell you about the loneliness epidemic in young people, because this is the part that should really wake us up. Young adults today are more anxious, more depressed, and more isolated than any generation we've ever measured. They have the most ways to connect in human history. And they feel more alone than anyone ever has. They're drowning. And a lot of them don't even know why. They've been told that faith is outdated, that community is optional, that you can build your whole life on a screen and it's not working. The proof is everywhere. In the anxiety, in the depression, in the despair. What if the thing they're missing is the very thing we threw away? Not a lecture, not a program, but a place to belong. People who know their name, a table with a seat saved just for them. I think a whole generation is quietly aching for exactly that. They just don't have the words for it yet. And here's the beautiful part. You can be the one who gives it to them. That young person at work who always seems a little lost, invite them over. That neighbor who lives alone, who you wave at but never really talk to, knock on the door. That family member who drifted away years ago, call them. Not to argue, just to say, I miss you. there's a place for you here. This is how it turns around. Not in a flash, not in a headline, but in 1,000 small acts of showing up. Let me come back to that family I described at the beginning. The one on Sunday morning, everyone on their screens, nobody going anywhere. It doesn't have to stay that way. What if one person in that family decided to do something different? What if they reached out to one other family, said, hey, come over for dinner. Let's actually talk. What if that turned into a weekly thing? What if a few more families joined? What if, before long, those kids who used to stare at tablets on Sunday mornings were laughing and playing with other kids who were becoming lifelong friends? What if those parents, who used to feel so alone, suddenly had people who'd show up for them in the hard times? What if faith, real faith, the kind with roots, started growing again? Not because anyone preached at them, but because they finally belonged somewhere. That's not a dream that's available to you, starting this week. I want to be honest with you about something, though. This isn't always comfortable. Showing up for people is hard. People are messy. They have problems. They'll disappoint you sometimes. They'll need things from you when you're tired. Real community costs something. It costs your time, your comfort, your Saturday afternoons. The reason we drifted into isolation isn't just because of technology. It's because isolation is easy. Connection is hard. It's easier to scroll than to call, easier to watch than to host, easier to stay home than to show up. But easy is killing us. Easy is the reason we're the loneliest, most anxious, most disconnected people who've ever lived. The hard thing is the good thing. It almost always is. And the hard thing here is simple to understand, even if it's not easy to do. Show up for real people in real life again and again. Let me give you the science one more time, because I want this to stick. People with strong social and faith connections live longer. That's measured. That's proven. They recover from illness faster. They bounce back from tragedy better. They report being happier, more satisfied, more at peace. The research is overwhelming. We are healthier, stronger, and more whole when we are connected to others in something bigger than ourselves. This isn't just spiritual, it's physical, it's mental, it's woven into the fabric of who we are as human beings. We were never meant to do life alone. And every part of us, body and soul, knows it. So when I say millions of Americans are losing their faith, here's what I really mean. Millions of Americans are losing their people, their tribe, their village, their family beyond family. And in losing that, they're losing the soil that faith grows in. You can't grow a plant in the desert, and you can't grow faith in isolation. But give it good soil, give it community, connection, people who show up, and it grows like wildfire, just like it always has. So here's what I want to leave you with. The empty pews aren't really about belief. They're about belonging. The answer isn't a better argument, it's a better table, a wider table, a table with room for one more. And you don't have to fix the whole country. You can't, nobody can, but you can change one corner of it. Your corner, your home, your street, your circle. You can be the person who notices, the person who invites, the person who shows up. You can be the reason someone doesn't drift away into the dark. That's not too big for you. That's exactly your size. So here's the one small thing I'd ask you to do. This week, think of one person who seems lonely. Just one. Maybe they used to believe and drifted. Maybe they never did. But you can see the ache in them. Maybe it's someone you love who slipped away and you've been too afraid to reach out. Reach out anyway. Don't preach. Don't argue. Don't try to fix them. Just say, come over. Let's eat. Let's talk. I've been thinking about you. That's it. That's the whole thing. Because faith was never lost in a classroom or a laboratory. It was lost at 1,000 empty kitchen tables. At 1,000 Sunday mornings where nobody got in the car. In 1,000,000 quiet moments where someone felt alone and nobody noticed. And it can be found, again, the very same way. One table at a time. One meal at a time. One person who decides to show up. The real reason millions of Americans are losing their faith isn't doubt. It isn't science. It isn't the scandals. It's that we forgot how to be there for each other. And the good news, the really good news, is that's something we can fix. Not the government, not the experts, not some big institution. You, me, ordinary people deciding to show up. So go set the table, pull up a chair, save a seat for someone who needs it. Because somewhere out there, someone is lonely tonight. Someone is drifting tonight. Someone is wondering if anybody would even notice if they disappeared. And you could be the one who says, I noticed, I see you. There's room for you here. That's how faith comes home, not with a thunderclap, but with an open door, a warm meal, and a friend who finally showed up. Start there. Start this week. Start with one. You might just change a life. You might just change your own. And here's something I want you to remember when it feels too small to matter. Every great movement in history started with a handful of people around a table. Not crowds, not stadiums, just a few who decided to show up for each other and refused to stop. That's how it always begins. Quietly, humbly, in someone's home. So don't underestimate what you're holding in your hands right now. The power to invite, the power to notice, the power to say, you belong here. That power built civilizations. It carried people through plagues and wars and famines and every dark night you can imagine. And it's the same power sitting in your living room tonight, waiting for you to use it. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat across from someone and really talked? No phones, no screens, no distractions. Just two people present with each other, being honest about life. For a lot of us, it's been too long. Way too long. And that's not your fault. The world was built to pull us apart. Everything around us is designed to keep us scrolling, swiping, watching, consuming alone. But you can push back against that. Starting tonight, you can be the strange and beautiful person who turns off the screen and turns toward another human being. You can be the one who breaks the spell. And here's what I've found. When you do that, when you really show up for someone, it doesn't just heal them, it heals you too. Because you were never meant to carry your life alone either. You have burdens, you have fears, you have nights where you wonder if any of it matters. And the cure for that, the real cure, isn't a better phone or a bigger paycheck or a perfect argument. It's people, it's belonging, it's that table. So when you reach out to someone this week, understand this. You're not just throwing them a lifeline, you're grabbing hold of one yourself. We rise together. We always have. And in a world that keeps telling us to go it alone, choosing each other might be the bravest, most faithful thing you can do. So set that table, make that call, open that door. The drifting can stop. The loneliness can lift. The faith can come home. And it starts with you deciding tonight that someone out there is worth showing up for. Go be the reason somebody believes again.